All right, hello everyone, and welcome to the Spring Black Doctoral Network workshop series. This is the last workshop in the series for this spring. I am Dr. Coleman. I will be your moderator for this event. Just go over some housekeeping real quick. I'm going to post a survey in the chat. If you could fill it out, let us know how we can do better or what we need to sustain. Please feel free to post your questions in the chat also, but we'll save all the questions until the end. And or at the end, you can use the raise hand icon for any question that you may have. Today's workshop is New Degree, New You, and it will be presented by Dr. Reagan Williams and Dr. Brian Sproul. Dr. Williams is a DBA, is a workforce development professional with 14 years of experience in managerial business development training, coordination, and quality assurance roles throughout different counties in southeastern Pennsylvania. She has a bachelor's of science in communication media with minors in history and journalism, publication relations, and a master's degree of art in adult and community education. And the master's degree is a concentration in communication technology, and that's from IUP, in Indiana University of Pennsylvania. She also holds a professional certificate in instructional technology. She completed her doctorate of business administration in 2021. Congrats, brand new doctor. Welcome to the club. At William Howard Taft University. She is originally from the great place of Northwestern Pennsylvania and currently resides in Philadelphia, working at
Versailles.
Versailles, there you go. Versailles as a senior manager, admissions and site operation. Her passion is promoting lifelong learning for anyone at any age or career stage. Her co-presenter, Dr. Brian Sproul, is a decorated law enforcement leader. Thank you for your service, sir. With 3 decades of experience. He is an author of The Effect of Federal Consent Decrees on Community Policing and is a subject matter expert on community policing and federal consent decrees. He served as adjunct professor at Harcum College from 2014 to 2018, and he taught a bunch of different classes along the or within the criminal justice curriculum. His higher educational journey includes a degree in business administration and a concentration in organizational management from, how do you say that name, Dr. Sproul?
Gwynedd Mercy.
Gwynedd Mercy College, and a graduate degree from Philadelphia College of Osteopathic Medicine in Organizational Development and Leadership. In May 2020, Dr. Sproul received his doctorate degree from California University of Pennsylvania. He is married and he is the father of 2 twin boys. I'll now turn it over to you two to tell us about the New Degree, New You.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Coleman, for that introduction. Let's go ahead and get started. First off, welcome everybody. Wait, let's make sure. Okay, welcome everybody. It's good to see you. If everybody could put in the chat like where they're from and what their respective degrees in, I would appreciate that, just so we know who our audience is. Today, in terms of our workshop, there are a couple key things we want you to remember. If you have the bandwidth to be on camera, go ahead and feel free to be on camera, but if not, we totally understand that. There will be different times that you can raise your hand or come off the mic to join the conversation. But if that is not applicable, then you can go ahead and feel free to respond to in the chat. and everything, and we'll be asking different chat, like different questions in terms of like with that prompt with the chat drop. With this today, we really want you to take the time to think about you. According to a survey in 2017, we only take more than 1 quarter to think about ourselves. So think about that. Like, when do we really take time to think about ourselves, think about our future, and think about where we're at? Would you like to add anything, Brian?
I'm guilty of that. Taking the time to think about, myself. I've been very much consumed with my education and raising a family throughout the time of achieving my doctorate degree, and it wasn't easy. And it's something I feel as though I should do, but also I believe in giving back. And I think one of the things that helped me and Dr. Williams really connect is that lifelong learningship. I really believe in giving back and being a lifelong learner and supporting that concept. It was something I had learned early on.
So at the end, we will have our contact information if anybody wants to reach out to us to get more information from the presentation or from us individually. I see in the chat, we have people from Maryland, Pennsylvania, Atlanta, Maryland. So we have different states represented and different fields of study and everything. So that's great. So let's go ahead. So in terms of today, in terms of the objectives, we hope that you're able to identify some transferable skills, assess your previous work experience, and decide what you want to share or not share on paper in an interview to see if you're ready to test the labor market. We hope that you leave with some tips and some materials to reference to see if you're really ready to start interviewing before you graduate. A lot of people are reticent to try to go out there and test the labor market until it's almost time to graduate. And with the current job market and the way things are, there's no better time to start ahead of time to see what your value might be and to explore a different option of what might be out there for you. So we know when you go through this whole journey of higher education, whether it's a doctorate or a bachelor's degree, it does become a new part of you and your own personal journey. And everybody has their own educational journey. I know myself, I went back to school, I went back to school very late. I hadn't been in school for 15 years. And just to kind of give you a picture, when I graduated the last time, there was no social media. It was AOL, it was dial up. That's what it looked like. That's what that looked like at that time. So it was a totally different scene. But I actually just really went back at that time to invest in myself, not because I needed another degree. It was just something I really wanted to do for me. So sometimes we kind of lose perspective along the way of why we're doing what we're doing. So I'm going to go ahead and play a couple of minutes from a video from Denzel Washington. So hopefully I'll cue this up correctly.
Searching for a better way to collaborate with your team? Try Miro, an online whiteboard made for teamwork.
I found that nothing in life is worthwhile unless you take risks. Nothing. Nelson Mandela said, "There is no passion to be found playing small and settling for a life that's less than the one you're capable of living." Now, I'm sure in your experiences in school and applying to college and picking your major and deciding what you want to do with life, I'm sure people have told you to make sure you have something to fall back on. Make sure you got something to fall back on, honey. But I never understood that concept. having something to fall back on. If I'm going to fall, I don't want to fall back on anything. I want to fall forward. I figure at least this way I'll see what I'm going to hit. Without consistency, you'll never finish. So do what you feel passionate about. Take chances. Don't be afraid to fail. There's an old IQ test, was 9 dots, and you had to draw 5 lines with a pencil within these 9 dots without lifting the pencil. The only way to do it was to go outside the box. Don't be afraid to think outside the box. Don't be afraid to fail big, to dream big. But remember, dreams without goals are just dreams. Reggie Jackson struck out 2,600 times in his.
Okay, so and everything for a couple reasons. When you are trying to obtain any level of higher education, it can be a very frustrating process, and you do fall. You do hopefully fall forward and not backwards, and you move on. I know from my own personal experience, when I graduated from graduate school the first time and I couldn't find a job, and I was getting ready to graduate, and the one lady in my class had worked for the university, and she was in her late 40s and had a couple kids. And I naively said, I was just like, I don't even know why I'm doing this. Like, I don't have a job yet and everything. And this is me like at 23, and I'm really questioning like why I just spent the last 5 years in school every summer. I wasn't one of those people that went on spring break and everything. And I remember her saying that there are so many things in your life that can be taken away from you, your kids, your house, even your spouse, but your education was one thing that can't. So, you know, despite what we have gone through or might be doing, that might not be where actually our degree is in, I think it's just important to remember some of those things, and to also remember to keep on continuing to dream about what you want to do. I remember when I finished graduate school, somebody asked me, actually, Liz, Dr. Sproul, he said, what are you going to do to give back? And I was like, well, what do you mean, give back? I'm like, I just been in school for the last 5 years. I couldn't even conceive at that point, give it back. And I was like, you know what? I said, I don't know, but I said, I'm going to figure it out in the meantime. And it took me a year to figure out. And it also took me a while to remember too, what some of my original dreams were, because somebody had asked me, well, what's your dream? And I couldn't remember because I was so burnt out from school. So in terms of what higher education, like what's that experience? You know, we hear a lot about the higher ed experience being dehumanizing, not being a positive experience for people of color. And part of it is because of the policies, part of it is because of the politics and structure. A lot of times people of color will get a degree and then they can't even get into the system that provided them with the degree. And it's a very frustrating process. People can't get tenured, people can't get interviewed. Also, while you're going through the process itself in terms of financing your education, and then you're in this playing field among people where, you know, people of color are really underrepresented. So, Dr. Sproul, do you have anything to add to that?
So yes, I found one, being in law enforcement, education isn't openly embraced. I oftentimes had to shy away from exposing my educational journey and take my courses kind complete my education and not really be as outward as other folks in other professions could be. And once I achieved that goal of graduating from PCOM, I wound up teaching, and I taught at Harcum, and that was the opportunity for me to find individuals just like me who was trying to achieve their goals, but needed a little help and needed a little support. And what I mean by that was I never saw many instructors or professors that could relate as I could. So, relate to me in a way in which I was to my students. For example, traditionally, most people give a syllabus on the first course day, and you pretty much follow the structure. My structure was or my design was to interview my students, find out what it was they wanted to learn from the curriculum, and then it was the second week that I handed out my syllabus so I can make sure that we made that necessary connection and that they were getting what it was that was going to benefit them, and they were going to get, there was more buy-in, and I never had that. But so I think during my journey, I was also looking at the way in which I wanted to design, how I wanted to do things that would be helpful and beneficial to those that were a lot like me or that came from, our background, which doesn't, as you like you said, always fall into that type of structure that oftentimes higher education offer. Now, there were, criteria, there were prerequisites. The institution had the different goals and objectives, and my director had what she had wanted to implement, but also had a lot of freedom to gear it. And I had a lot of, I was able to be a little bit more liberal to make sure I was making that connections because I wanted my students to succeed. So, that's my experience.
Okay. So the data also basically says, it talks about the levels of frustration in terms of not necessarily meeting the traditional models in terms of women and minority groups, and the financial hardship that higher education people take on when they're trying to achieve that, especially people of color, in terms of amount of money that people have to borrow and finance. I know some people have to start and stop their programs because of finances. And it really shows too, how much money some people come out in owing. So then you're really questioning, okay, when am I going to see the return on my investment in terms of what I'm putting into my education? And in here you can see like with Blacks and Hispanics and Latinos in particular, in comparison to Caucasian people, that basically we experience more debt. And then this shows down here too, the combination based upon. So, while you're trying to attain your degree and everything and better yourself, it can be a challenging experience, and it can be sometimes demotivating in terms of the aspect of finance.
So for me, my job wound up being a little bit more supportive, where it would pay for some graduate courses. So there was some help. Then there was the maxing out of credit cards. It was sacrificing on some of my trips and expenses and things of that nature. And, my wife continuously complained that there was different programs that would pay for it, or my tuition, or that at the time, I think it was President Barack Obama had under his administration, where you could be forgiven because you were providing a service local, state, or federally, and I never applied for it. Oftentimes I wrestle with, should I have made that decision? But as people of color, we wind up sacrificing more, I think, not only in education, but in a lot more of the activities in which we find ourselves in because of just, the dynamics of wealth and wealth distribution. So I agree with you in what you're saying. I agree with the data. I found a way, and I'm still paying for it now, like other folks, and like my wife and her tuition. And so it has an impact on our family today. You would think, as an accomplished doctor or graduate school achiever, that it would have been more compensation for me in my field, and that is not the case. So I take on extra projects and do adjunct work to help offset some of the expenses that have occurred on this journey.
Okay, so we are going to segue into talking about change management, basically creating your own system for you.
So if the participants can you chat drop or come off the mic? And we'd like to know, based on this slide here, do you enjoy the process of change in regards to your career, or when you were looking for jobs? When we talk about change management, what if we approach getting that new degree and beginning that new chapter in the same manner and approach that business, information systems, and IT uses for our own change management? And is it possible to apply the principles or steps of change management for yourself to decide if you're already to test the labor market? I didn't have that opportunity to test the labor market while I was going through my educational journey. So I was kind of secured, but I'm going through that process now. With 31 years of service, I am looking to test the labor market, but we learned today that we're in a recession and things are, taking on a downside. Gas is in Philadelphia, $5.62. For me to fill my vehicle today, I spent $124. So I don't know if it's really ideal to really test the market. But we'd like to hear from you. Some of the other participants, and what was your experience, or what do you feel as we talk about change management in this particular slide? Dr. Coleman?
Well, I'm here now. So yeah, I'll tell you, I was kind of like you, and when I finished my doctorate degree in 2018, but I was 17 years into the military at that point. So I still had 3 years until I retired from the Army. And, being a police officer, being in the military, you are, you have a lot of resources that the general public don't have at your disposal. So when you go out to test the labor market, you have got to adapt and change to those things, because some of your expectations that you have, I've been doing this for this long, I have this degree, it's going to be easy, and it's not. You really have to dig deep and ask yourself, like, what direction am I going in? Is this what I want to do? And start creating some of those things. Like, I've been out the military for a year and a half, and I just got my first job. And so I have a work at home job because right now, what you said, the gas prices don't align with my bank account, or my bank account don't align with gas prices. So yeah, the way my bank account is set up. But yeah, so you have to go through a change after you get your degree. So the title of this presentation is perfect, because I always tell people getting a degree is the easy part, but applying it is the hard part.
I agree.
Yeah.
So,
I'm
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I'd really like to hear from our doctorate in clinical forensic psychology. I think we could really have a great conversation because that is more of some of my other interests. Reagan knows, Dr. William knows that I was thinking about pursuing another master's, and it would have been in psychology.
Yeah, he asked me if I was going to get a master's after this doctor. I was like, no. Wasn't enough.
And so, Dr. Coleman, thank you for your service. And, you know, going back to one of the previous slides and talking about finances, you know, when I first did my 4 years of service in the United States Navy, I never even took advantage of our GI Bill. And those 10 years went by and I lost that. I lost that resource. And, you know, so we learn, we grow, we develop, and, you know.
So, hello everyone. Unfortunately, my camera is not working right now. So I did want to just speak briefly regarding what Dr. Sproul asked regarding the forensic psychology degree. I started off as a criminal justice major, and after working for the court system for 16 years, went back to school and got my doctorate. I'm currently working right now in a state psychiatric hospital in Maryland, working with highly acute, mentally ill patients with schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder. Many of them have, well, they all have criminal law enforcement contact. Typically, it's assault, drug paraphernalia, drug use. And so for me, it's been an interesting journey. And right now, I'm studying for my licensing because psychology works where you may get your degree, but depending on what state you're practicing in, you have to get your license before you can make any decent money. Here in Maryland, you can get a registered psychology associate by passing the ethics exam in the state of Maryland, and that affords you the ability to make money, make a decent salary. So with that being said, like I said, it's been an interesting journey for me. I'm a seasoned student. So right now I'm working for my retirement, basically. And of course, the debt is astronomical. It's not going away. And that's just the way it is.
Thanks for sharing that.
Thank you. Yes. So I think when we speak to this slide here in change management, we've all created a change request within ourselves that we've had some time to review and reflect that change request. We've all assessed the risk and obviously based on the accomplishments, approved those changes. And we're still looking, I think it's a work in progress that we're still looking to implement changes, even based on our accomplishments that we have achieved. And that, do we ever really close the change requests? I don't think I do. You, Dr. Williams, do you?
No, I feel like I'm a constant work in progress. I find other different things that pique my interest and I figure, why not try it? And especially since during COVID, I really tried some out of the box stuff that I would never have tried. Like, for example, one thing I kind of struggled with was like sales and closing. And then, you know, since I went, social media wasn't my thing and everything, I actually worked for a matchmaking service just to try something I would never have tried, but just to kind of bring together like my skill set, force myself to change. and learn this new skill and acclimate. So I feel like it's a constant process that we all are going through. Mhm. Yes, it was really cool to work for a matchmaking service. It really was.
All right, so again, we'd like to hear from some of the participants, the imposter syndrome. What should you stay away from while you are deciding to test the labor market and your own change management? There's always assumptions, and then there is always that reality. I think I still wrestle with that even today. What I know, what others know, and what the realities are of life, and how to cope, knowing what the signals are. I think what helps me is speaking to Reagan, having other resources and other outlets, and that's one of the things that I've picked up from someone who graduated with me, Dr. Harry Drayton, who introduced me to the Black Doctoral Network. He's helped me with the signs, knowing what the signs are. Oftentimes we need reinforcement to know that we're not alone in the journeys that we're following. The distinguish between humility and fear, and I think they're so close that you often distinguish, or do you experience them both? We go through those periods of feeling humiliation and having fear. One of my issues are, and Dr. Williams will tell you this, letting go of perfectionism. I wanted to practice and practice and practice for this presentation because I suffer from professionalism. I don't know who's on the other side. I don't know who my audience is. I don't know what my brand will look like. And so I think 3-4 slides in, I feel a lot better and I toned down. But, I read something, and we all know this, but I read something earlier this week where the article talked about why is public speaking to the bar that what it is when we really need to just have crucial and casual conversations, because you'll have more crucial and more casual conversations than you will have public speaking engagements. And so knowing how to have a one-on-one with someone, or knowing how to just maybe have an elevator conversation is actually much more important than public speaking. So, let go of that perfectionism. We all need to be kind to ourselves. Speaking of COVID, I think we've probably all touched on that. We have to make time for ourselves. And I don't want to be biased here, but ladies, I think you guys have always known to pamper yourselves: hair, nails, feet, girls' night out, things of that nature. That is not something that happens with me. And Reagan always say, well, Brian, you have to take time out for yourself because you're always running errands for my children: karate, football, soccer, basketball, camp, school, this, that, homework, cooking, making sure my spouse is okay. And so I finally took myself on a fishing trip to Hyannis, Massachusetts last week, and it felt good to do it. At first, it felt guilty, but it felt good to just go deep sea fishing for a day. So we have to be, kind to ourselves and track your success. I think that comes without saying. Have a mentor or a manager. Reagan don't know, but she's my mentor. We started out, our shared relationship was being a mentor to one of my employees. And then, our relationship has grown to where we're resources for one another. We bounce ideas off of one another. We help each other in achieving goals. Say yes to opportunities. I introduced Reagan to the Black Doctoral Network, and she helped me say yes to the opportunity that we have here to speak to you. Because again, my perfectionism issue is that I was like, well, no, because, you know, I'm a baby doctor, you know, 2 years in, what do I say to some folks that, you know, I took it as though, how do I impress you guys? How do I fit in? And I'm embracing the feeling. I'm really enjoying this evening. I'd like to hear more from you, to learn a lot more. But I must say, from our doctor from Maryland, you know, I did not know that once you accomplish that psychology degree, that there's more to accomplish, because I believe in the work that I'm in, that if we had some contributions from the clinicians or folks that were really into the mindset or the background of some of the reasons of why things happen, we would know. Because like one of my old mentors taught me, we will not arrest our way out of the situations that we have. And I think in the United States, when you look at the various different increases in crime, in mass shootings, that we need the help of our clinicians and our medical professions to help us in understanding why some of the things are happening.
So let's segue in to the next slide. And I think it's just really important that sometimes when you get a new degree or a new job, you're just like, oh my gosh, like, how did I get this job? How did I get this position? What did I just kind of get myself into and everything? So I think sometimes it just takes time to get adjusted and realizing your values and gifts and what you can bring to the table. So we're going to talk about the labor market and testing and leveraging it for you. So we're going to look at some things that are happening within the labor market, from the Great Resignation to some data and some tips that you can apply to yourself as well. I have to say I'm a little bit of a data nerd. I love data. That's one thing going back to school really taught me and everything. So everybody's heard of the Great Resignation. It is really real. The term was actually coined by a professor actually in Texas. I think it was the University of Texas, I believe. I'm not sure. I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is something that's really been happening. And so just kind of looking at the numbers, in February of 2022, at least 4.4 million Americans quit their jobs. That was the month with the most American resignations, was November 2021, when a whopping 4.5 million people quit their jobs. So in the midst of this pandemic, everybody felt the liberty to like take a chance, take a risk, quit their jobs, and then think about, I think it gave people a perspective about what's really important to them, taking in everything that was going on. I know myself, I was thankful for COVID in the aspect of it allowed me to finish school, because I was at the point, I was kind of teetering like, I'm not going to get this done. I worked at night doing security. So I would go to work all day and then work another 6 or 7 hours at night and get up and just do the whole thing all over. I'd be sitting at the front desk doing homework at the security job. So I was really happy that everything went to remote, because it gave me that time and that command over my schedule. And I think that's what a lot of people kind of felt and were empowered to do during the Great Resignation. I don't really think there's ever going to be a quote unquote normal, like how we had experienced normal before in terms of the job market and trends. There are still jobs that needed to be recovered from 2021. And that has been cut in half basically to 4 million jobs in 2022. So it was intense, the Great Resignation, but things are really leveling off and expect it to normalize in the third quarter. Like, I know at my own job, we had all these postings, nobody was applying. Everybody was kind of out doing their own thing, whether it was a hustle, a side gig, remote work, not working. People have really taken the time to figure some things out, I feel, for themselves. In terms of the quit rates by industry, all of those industries that kind of dealt firsthand, I feel, with people in terms of leisure, hospitality, retail, accommodation, some of those people also in those sectors were the hardest hit by COVID, financially and health-wise and everything too. And as you see how the numbers dwindle down based on industry, like people weren't leaving necessarily state and local government, people aren't leaving federal government and everything too. In terms of, you can see within all the months and everything, the fluctuation, but the number of people actually quitting their jobs and making changes. There are a lot of people that were in that cycle in the Great Resignation were people too in their late 30s through their early 50s as well. And I think a lot of it had to do with myself, my own take is just having that job experience and then really realizing you have the latitude and command over your own journey and future. In the essence of time, I'm going to talk a little quickly. So these are some predictors for the labor market coming up in 2022. On the side here, you can see I have like based on people's education in terms of these median weekly earnings and everything. So it dwindles down, as you can see, based on education. And then in terms of unemployment, it actually increases. So right now, I know everybody hears about diversity, equity, and inclusion. Employers are really focusing on that now in terms of HR. There's more emphasis in terms of organizational culture, cultural fit, people having a work-life balance, and the flexibility. I know my current job is actually a hybrid model. I've been working remotely, but I don't really think that would have happened if it wasn't for COVID, because I've worked somewhere where everything was traditionally in the classroom. I worked for an IT training program. Everything was in the classroom. They weren't switching. This is how it was going to be. So companies have changed their norms and how they look at things and everything as well. And remote work isn't going anywhere. It seems like it's a thing here to stay. I don't know if anybody is familiar or not, but places are trying to pass the 4-day work week, right? So I know the UK just recently started a whole trial on that for the next 6 months with 70 companies to see if it works in terms of people working 32 hours a week and still making the same amount of pay. It recently was a bill in California, but it did not get passed this past spring, but they're still trying to work on that avidly. This is just some stats and data in terms of showing what the growth is going to look like. I like for people to be able to see that it's not all in vain. It's all not for naught. Just like, I forget who it was, the doctor in clinical psychology that, you know, she's really doing this for the next phase of her life and everything and the amount of debt. But despite the debt, I think it's important to do something that you want to do, especially if it's going to be something that you're going to do pretty much the rest of your life. So this just shows the projections and job breakdown in terms of openings based on degrees. So as you can see, there's a lot in terms of education, and healthcare, really, that's growing. So now I'm going to have Dr. Sproul talk about transferable skills.
So transferable skills. In the essence of time, I'm going to up the pace just a little bit. Analysis and problem solving, I believe with our accomplishments, becoming doctorates or having gone through grad school, we all know what analysis and problem solving is. Being able to comprehend large amounts of information, form and defend independent conclusions. I mean, these are all the contents of a course or courses that we've taken. Define a problem and identify possible causes. I know in my courses, this was always the question, to the point of where I did not want to hear a problem again. I was always the type of person that I don't want to hear your problem. I want to hear your solution. But throughout school, it was always problem, problem, problem. Interpersonal and leadership skills. You have to have interpersonal leadership skills. These are definitely transferable skills. And if you cannot be interpersonal with someone, then you're going to lack that diversity, equity, and inclusion, because I believe that's what a lot of what came from that movement, the Me Too movement, was the lack of good interpersonal skills. Facilitate group discussions or conduct meetings. These are all skills we need to have. Effectively mentor subordinates and our peers. This has been something that's always been one of my biggest pros. In the environment in which I worked, I had 3 sergeants, a corporal, and 40 police officers at one particular time when I was going through grad school. And I encouraged all my subordinates to go back to school, get their education, and a significant portion of them did. So they've gone on to be registered nurses. Some have gotten their master's degrees. Some have gotten promoted to detectives. So I wholeheartedly believe in being a mentor and collaborating effectively on projects, navigate complex bureaucratic environments. Dr. Coleman, being in the military, and anyone who works for the state know about navigating complex bureaucratic environments. That's probably with any culture of any position today. I find that a lot of the work that we do today is very project management oriented. I find that higher education has helped me be able to be given a task. I like to frame it in the concept of a project, manage that project with those organizational skills that I have, pretty much be left alone to do it and to submit whatever findings I need to submit upon completion of that.
Dr. Sproul, you have to
Yes.
get through a couple more slides. So
Okay. Which takes you into self-management, decent work habits, having the ability of having good written and oral communication skills, which most of us in our accomplishments have probably received, and those other skills.
And just so you know, these are skills that you can go ahead and put on your resume. You can talk about in your interview. Sometimes you get stuck in terms of what you put on, especially the higher you go in terms of your education. So hopefully this can give you a different idea of maybe some things that you can include.
So I believe in my wrap up, implementing change. Some of the ideas are to join an advisory board, join organizations such as the Black Doctoral Network, volunteer your time, mentor or coach someone, apply for traditional or non-traditional fellowships, engage in lifelong learning, which I believe we've all have done. Information interviews, Dr. Williams' favorite, remote work. I cannot do remote work. I need to get out there and be a part of what's going on in the world. Gig work, hustle in your field or out of your field. And I'll wrap up with use your job's goal setting as an opportunity and see if they will pay for it. Sometimes they do, and sometimes they don't.
I know I just recently did, and I got to improve to take a project management course that the company is going to pay for. So you just never know. It's about how you can apply those skills. And these are just some different things, because sometimes we get stuck about what we can do and everything as we're moving along in our careers. So in terms of putting everything together that we've talked about, these are some questions. These are some questions that you can ask yourself in terms of today. Do you feel that you learned a new tool or resource? Are you able to apply any new change management principles? Do you feel that you're able to begin your own new chapter despite your educational experience, whether it was good or bad? And basically, are you ready to test the labor market, not as that same person that you were? And just very quickly, these are some resources and everything, some additional resources that I listed that people might be interested in. The one key resource I would say is beyond the professorate. If you're ready to get into higher education or just a position that requires a doctoral degree, even if it's something related to STEM, I found that to be a really good resource as well. I also have the references included. I know we're at time. And Ms. Dr. Coleman. I have wrapped up.
Yes, ma'am. All right. So I appreciate the class, the information that y'all just provided to us. And on behalf of the Black Doctoral Network, I would just like to thank the both of you for giving up your time, your resources, and sharing them. This video will be available online, which I do think more people will view it online. Thank you. I do have one question though, before we end the recording and wrap up, just real quick, because I see that like someone like Miss Flanagan, she put that she has a bachelor's degree. So what gave you, or what was your motivation to continue in education to get a doctorate degree? Because it's 2, 6, 7 more years after a bachelor's degree. So what advice would you give to somebody who's considering getting that next level degree?
Well, for myself personally, I would say assess where you're at and think about what you want for your future. Is it really a viable option? For some people, it might just be upskilling and everything versus getting a whole nother degree. But I know for myself, I saw it as an investment in myself and for my future. And that's why I personally did it. So if you want to maybe get to that next level or a certain position, because I remember I interviewed for a job and now this person works for the state and in the state of Pennsylvania in government. And I remember she said to me, but you have no business experience. And I was like, well, I have a master's degree. And she goes, that doesn't matter. She said, for this position, you need business experience, and most of your experience is a nonprofit. She goes, are you thinking about going back to school? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, well, I would go back. And for me, it was that defining moment, because I knew financially I was going to be stuck. And then 2, just how people view working in a nonprofit. So you have to consider also what sector you're working in and what you want to move to.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Sprout?
So I concur with what you said, and I think, and I guess you guys could probably tell me just a little rebellious. I think what's going to happen is at some point in your career, you're going to hit that roadblock, or you're going to come to work for someone who you probably wouldn't want to work for, or at some point you want to make some type of change. And so it'll be at that point where you will consider, doing an assessment and then, taking it to those necessary next levels, whatever they may be, because you don't want to find yourself stagnant. And at some point, I believe in any systems that we work within, we want to bring about change, and we want to bring about how can I really affect this system.
Well, thank you. And on that note, I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. If anybody else has any additional questions, please feel free to ask.